Hello, everyone. Oh, hello. We are going to start in 2 minutes. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, we will start now. Sarah?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to IYRS 2020. This is our opening ceremony, and we just want to give you guys a big welcome. So first off, let's go ahead and thank our amazing sponsors, GitHub and Sticker Mule. So here are some of the interesting presentations. There are much more than this, but these are just some that we thought were really interesting. And we have 55 speakers in all around the 2 days, and we have 33 presentations in all.
Many of the presenters today came from our research program, which is like a few months long research program where you would find groups and work together on a research project. And we also help some groups with finding mentors. If you want to be included in the next round, you should apply at studentresearchsociety.org and we will be in touch. We provide mentor matching, science fair advice from ISF finalists, and potential grants to fund your project. We also have another hackathon, Nucleotide. It is happening in early December online, so anyone can join in high school or below. You sign up at nucleotidehack.com, and if you want more details, you can ask on Discord. We also have our biology camp at helix.science/camp. Unfortunately, all spots are full as we did exceed the maximum capacity, but if you have experience with research and you'd like to get a summer volunteer position for your resume, you can sign up to be a teacher and teach a biology concept or bioinformatics. We're especially looking for past science fair competitors and people with bioinformatics experience. Additionally, we are seeking new editors for our seeking new editors and writers and designers for our blog. That is at helix.science/blog. We already have 40 plus awesome science articles written by teens, and we're looking for more people to write, edit, and design for them. Volunteer hours are available, so just ask Joanne. We are providing, thanks to the generosity of our sponsors, we are providing 6 $15 prizes today to teams that we thought do a very good job. And we were basically just judging based off of the quality of the research and the quality of the presentation, like your speaking skills. So those will be the only 2 criteria. And we don't really have like a formal rubric. Certificates of participation will be provided upon request, but you must DM Sarah on Discord by June 28 to request it. which is about a week from now. So it should be plenty of time. And we will be announcing the winners of the prizes via Discord. So join at helixscience.org. And if we felt that there were a lot of teams that did a really good job, we might even provide more awards using our funds from Helix Camp. So besides the IYRS and research program, Helix has a lot of interesting events that you can get involved in. First of all, you can start a chapter, you can write a science blog, you can hold fundraisers for COVID-19 and other causes, you can join our research program, you can send us your science fair projects and posters, and our editor Joanne will help you convert it into a paper that you could submit to other places. We also have STEM workshops like our Intro to AI workshop that had 100 attendees. We have social media info campaigns where we've reached out to over 40,000 people about coronavirus safety. And we have a podcast where you can get volunteer hours, YouTube, where you can make science videos and get volunteer hours, and also even TikTok. We also provide chapter grants to our chapters so they can continue with their outreach. So if any of those interest you, you should go ahead and join our Discord at HELYXscience.org. That's helixscience.org, which allows you to join our Discord. All our business is conducted over Discord, so you have to join that. And if during this IYRS you need information, you should look at our schedule for the exact dates at preview.tinyurl.com/IYRS 2020 schedule. And it's also linked on helixscience.org if you don't want to type that out. And that concludes it, and let the IYRS begin. We are a bit ahead of schedule, actually. So our first presentation will be checking the schedule. The first presentation will be at 11 a.m. That's Krishnaveni Dole and Puloma Bishnu. And they're doing engineered bacteria for ocean PET degradation. Sounds very cool. So I guess just sit tight for 20 minutes until it is time for the first one. And if you have any questions about the event or questions about Helix in general, feel free to ask in chat or request unmute permissions. For those of you watching on YouTube live stream, feel free to join the Zoom call. It is, we still have room in the Zoom call, so you can join on the Zoom instead of watching in YouTube, and that way you can also actually ask questions. The Zoom code is actually on the schedule. If you go to helixscience.org, let me find the link. If you go to helixscience.org and if you go to helixscience.org, there's a link that says IYRS schedule. And on that link spreadsheet, you will find the Zoom join information. And there's also a direct link to join Zoom also. So you can just click on that, and that may be even more convenient than watching on YouTube, which also has a slight time lag. I've also posted the link in chat. For those of you who just joined, we are actually, I think, 15 minutes ahead of schedule. So we will be starting at 11 o'clock with our first presentation, which is about using bacteria to degrade harmful plastic in the ocean, which is very interesting. Again, if you have any questions about Helix or what Helix does, feel free to ask in the chat. For those of you on YouTube, we still do have room in our Zoom. I think there's about 15 people on YouTube right now, so you can also come into the Zoom if you want. That way you can ask questions, and it's a bit more interactive that way. But completely up to you, of course. Okay, so I will be the first moderator. Throughout the day, we will have several moderators helping facilitate things. So thank you to Meryl Leo, who's a leader of the Florida Helix chapter, Joanne Lee, our awesome editor-in-chief, William Kang, our soon-to-be chief information officer and current assistant CTO, Chris Jung, our assistant CEO, and then Yash Gupta, our CTO. So thank you to all of them for volunteering their time today. And our first presentation is Engineered Bacteria for Ocean PET Degradation by Krishnaveni Dole and Pulama Vishnu. I believe that I see both of them on this call. So Pulama and Krishnaveni, one of you can start sharing your screen now, just to make sure everything works, and turn on your camera and mic to make sure that also works.
Hi guys, so I'm gonna share my screen.
I will stop sharing my screen. Okay.
All right, is this working?
Yes, I see it.
Perfect.
Looks nice.
So just let us know when you want us to talk or start.
Okay. Feel free to start whenever you feel comfortable.
All right.
Okay, so hi, our names are Vani and Paloma. We're from Andover, Massachusetts, which is about 20 minutes north of Boston in the United States. And we are going to be talking about our research on engineering bacteria for ocean plastic degradation. So the problem, one of the biggest problems on Earth is plastic pollution. Therefore, the use of plastic products is not environmentally responsible. An estimated 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic float in our oceans and make up to 60 to 90% of all marine debris studied. Sea turtles and seabirds often mistake floating plastic bags for food and can suffocate or starve. Additionally, plastic takes an average of 1,000 years to decompose, meaning every piece of plastic ever produced is still on Earth. So considering the widespread use of plastic, it is unrealistic to expect their complete discontinuation. Therefore, we have come up with a design that maintains the convenience of a plastic bottle while also being environmentally sustainable. We call this solution Bottles Be Gone, a self-dissolving bottle. By placing inactive engineered bacteria under its label, the standard PET water bottle would degrade into environmentally friendly compounds upon reaching the ocean. As you can see here, we have modeled how a bottle with our technology would look when degrading in the ocean. It's important to note that we wouldn't be inventing a whole new bottle, but we are introducing a technology that companies can implement under water bottle labels and pre-existing bottle designs.
So how does the solution actually work? We would start with the same standard polyethylene terephthalate water bottle, or PET water bottle, that is the industry standard. And we would cover it with a full-length bottle label, also made out of PET. But under this label would be our plastic degrading bacteria, which we have engineered to produce enzymes that will degrade the bottle into two organic, environmentally benign compounds called ethylene glycol and terephthalic acid. And these compounds are naturally found in the ocean, and they can be used as carbon sources for several marine microorganisms. So taking a closer look at our bacteria, which the slide isn't loading, but you can go here. So the bacteria we would use is called Bacillus tiansheni. It is a spore-forming marine bacteria, and both these characteristics are important to our design. So first, being spore-forming means that B. tiansheni would form endospores when it's not in its ideal environments. And since it's a marine bacteria, its ideal environments are that of the ocean. So this means that when the bottle is in use, the bacteria is outside of the ocean, and therefore it would be in its spore state and it would be inactive, meaning that it would not be producing the enzymes to degrade the bottle. And then after the bottle, say it reaches the ocean, unfortunately, the bacteria would germinate and it would start producing an enzyme that would degrade the bottle into the two organic compounds. As to how we would engineer this bacteria, in this slide, you can see a plasmid here in our bacteria. So we would use a transformation experiment to introduce a plasmid to the bacteria that contains the gene for the enzyme to degrade plastic. This gene is called PETase, which I usually just refer to as PETase. It originates from Ideonellosacchariniasis, a bacteria from the South China Sea, and it has the ability to degrade polyethylene terephthalate. This is a relatively newly discovered enzyme, so there are people working to catalyze it and see exactly how it works. So originally, what we wanted to do was take this enzyme, place it in a plasmid right here, and integrate this plasmid into BT and Cheney via a transformation experiment. However, as we started to move into the experimentation phase of our project, we discovered a couple conflicts. Firstly, being in a high school laboratory setting with our limited resources and experience makes it pretty difficult to conduct a transformation experiment with BT and Cheney. Such an experiment would be considerably more successful in a designated bacillus lab, which can take several years and the guidance of a top university to establish. Second, since PETase is a relatively newly discovered enzyme, its exact properties are not known. And so we discovered that by working with other scientists that are playing with this enzyme, that it might not be optimal for degrading plastic water bottles, and we're not sure as to whether or not it would work in our ocean environment. So therefore, we have decided to conduct a few proof of concept experiments regarding plastic degradation. So in our proof of concept plastic degradation experiments, we plan to use two enzymes, one called PETase, as mentioned before, and another known as leaf compost cutinase, or LCC. Both of these enzymes have been proven to show plastic degradation properties, but under different conditions and with different plastic substrates. And so since it is difficult to work with bacillus in our high school environment, we will use a cell-free system called BioBits to express the enzymes. However, we might not get enough product from BioBits, so we also plan to do transformation experiments using E. coli, which is much easier and more likely to be successful in our high school environment. We have selected parts for our plasmid, which are codon optimized for E. coli, including a T7 promoter and terminator. All these parts are contained in the backbone PJL1, and by inserting our genes for either of these two enzymes into that backbone, we can create a plasmid that is optimal to be used in the cell-free BioBit system and in E. coli. We have also included a GFP and His tag in our plasmid design. This is important because it will allow us to determine whether the enzyme is actually being produced when we do our cell-free or our transformation experiments. And if it is being produced, we will be able to quantify its amounts using the GFP and His tag. Here's a closer look at the plasmids that we have designed. On the left, you can see the plasmid for leaf compost cutinase. It has the PJL1 backbone. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but here the green and red would be our backbone. And then this blue section here is where we've inserted the LCC gene. And we've also added this little GFP and His tag here. On the right is the same enzyme, except we have replaced PETase instead of LCC. One thing to note is that the PETase gene we decided to use is a double mutant of PETase, which has been engineered to improve its degradation properties as compared to the original PETase gene, which was found in Ideonellosacchariniasis.
So worldwide, there have been efforts to reduce carbon emissions from plastic manufacturing plants or to decrease the use of plastics in favor of reusable products like glass containers or metal water bottles. So plastic manufacturers consistently receive a steady revenue due to the convenience of their products, but they still receive a lot of negative publicity. In partaking in a positive effort like our technology, we can help decrease plastic pollution and they can still retain their biggest and highest selling products. And we are able to compromise with major corporations as they will face less blame compared to their competitors for plastic pollution. And this could potentially increase the demographic of a company's consumers, and it can also increase revenue streams for other products they may offer. And these consumer demands for a solution to plastic pollution can incentivize producers to keep producing a cleaner technology. For consumers, they feel like they're making a change, and they would be inclined to buy a product like ours. Our technology retains the convenience of a plastic water bottle, and it's a practical solution. For families who are given the choice to buy $40 Hydro Flask or a 20-pack of plastic water bottles for $5.99, it can be easy to understand the choice for plastic. But our idea can be of use.
Sorry, I think Paloma's mic has cut out, so I can pick up from here. So the consumer benefits of this product would be that the environmental benefits would incentivize the consumers. The consumers would feel like they're making a change, and because it's not really optimal for a lot of families to have to go with more expensive options, our product would allow them to continue the convenience of use of a plastic water bottle. Our idea won't cause any economic discomfort to families because it won't increase the price of the standard water bottle. This is because bacteria is very cheap to culture and will result in an economy of scale. So theoretically, our bottle would cost only 1 or 2 cents more than the current bottle, if even that. This would also incentivize the consumer because they're keeping up with the eco-friendly trends that we now see taking over social media and news sources, and it would incentivize them because it feels good to be eco-friendly because you know that there are direct benefits to your purchase. It would also incentivize consumers in terms of their health because they will stop consuming microplastics that are seen in fish, and it will increase the health of their lifestyle. It also creates cleaner beaches and oceans, which is great because no one wants to go on vacation and see a beach covered in trash. We like to keep our environment clean. Paloma, is your mic back or should I continue?
I think can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so it's good. Next slide. So what do the people say? They would buy it. So we did a survey of 200 different people, and after taking into the consideration of the estimated cost, benefits to the environment, safety, and more, over 80% responded that they would buy our bottle. Safety was an important component of our proposed solution, as our bacteria are not harmful as they are non-pathogenic. They do not activate in typical everyday environments, and they require a certain temperature, pH, and salt concentration that can only be found in the ocean, which is why our chosen bacteria are a safe species, and we specifically chose it so that they will not present any harm to the everyday consumer. We would also like to work with the Environmental Protection Agency to get it approved for safety. And we also plan to do an environmental impact analysis, as releasing a bacteria into the ocean can affect marine biomes in unforeseen ways. So the importance of our project is that there's not enough awareness on GMOs or genetically modified organisms for people to make a well-informed decision. Our project hopes to tackle this issue and educate the public on the importance and the potential of synthetic biology and bioengineering. It's important that we utilize all the effective tools that we have at our disposal to solve important issues on our planet, and that includes plastic pollution. That means educating the public on how progressive GMOs can be for our society. So we have been featured on different news outlets such as Fox 25 and WCVB Channel 5, as well as different newspapers. And we aim to help inform the public on how important synthetic biology is through our research. Perhaps our important and most favorite part of this project is how much it's taught us. We began it in the BioBuilder Club at our school, and BioBuilder is an organization based out of MIT that promotes synthetic biology education. When we first joined the club, we had never even heard of the field. Now, we are constantly building on our own knowledge as well as participating in global events like these to encourage other students to get involved. Over the last year and a half, we have been developing our project and we've discovered the synthetic biology community. From presenting at conferences such as the Global Community Biosummit at MIT to collaborating with Harvard scientists working with petases and bacillus, we've learned that the community is always open and collaborative, which is what makes this field so special. As a rising field, we believe it is important to use our project to spread awareness about synthetic biology as well as about environmental sustainability. If we educate the public, we can help people make informed decisions. It's important to emphasize our safety features and our extensive research into people's concerns, but the important thing is that this idea is possible. So thank you for listening to our presentation, and we encourage you to reach out to us. We love connecting with new people to help improve our world, and you can find our email at the bottom of this slide. Thank you.
With that, we'd like to open it up to any questions. I can't see the chat, but if Paloma can, or if you guys just want to shout them out, either way. Oh, here's more.
So Monica Brody said, I absolutely love the idea, but as someone who lives in the desert, how would that benefit my environment? So that's a great question. So our technology, so the hope is that we can put it on plastic water bottles, and living in the desert, it may not, so actually, it may not directly impact you, but but the way that plastic enters our oceans, they can enter in various different ways and flowing through streams and such. And if that isn't present in your environment, then I guess it wouldn't directly impact, but also buying the technology and the bottle with the technology itself would help promote the cause. So even if it isn't directly impacting your environment personally, you are contributing to a greater movement by buying the bottle and raising awareness for it and showing that it could have potential for other people who may live in environments where, the coast may be very close to them, or they can directly see the impacts of plastic pollution.
Another reason would be that maybe being in a desert, maybe you may not see the results on, say, your beach, but the results do contribute to climate change as plastic degradation in the ocean, as it naturally degrades very slowly. But as it floats around, it does contribute to climate change because it releases CO2. So by creating this solution, it would decrease those effects of climate change. And maybe you won't see the actual bottles floating around in your hometown, but the bottles that are used in your hometown are definitely going to be ending up in the ocean, unfortunately, and contributing to the problem. So this would solve that. Sarah is asking, how long will it take for the bottle to dissolve? So as we mentioned, we're doing proof of concept experiments with the two enzymes, PETase and LCC. And the purpose of these proof of concept enzymes is to perform a functional assay using different plastic substrates. And we hope that this assay will allow us to see exactly how long the plastic will take to dissolve in ocean environments. So although we have not, unfortunately, been able to get into the lab lately to test this idea, past studies with petase have shown degradation of a PET film in 6 weeks. We anticipate our project taking a little bit longer, as we're not doing a film, we're doing a plastic water bottle. And the crystalline structure of different plastics does affect the degradation of the enzymes, which is another reason that we'd like to use both PETase and LCC to conduct our proof of concept and our functional assays. So although it will probably take longer than 6 weeks, we still think that this is not a far cry from the 1,000 years that it takes for plastic to dissolve without any degradation enzymes. Feel free to put any questions in. We can touch upon some common questions that we do get. So when we conducted our survey we conducted a survey of a sample of 200 people, and one of the common concerns that we got were health concerns. People saying, well, what happens if I'm using the bottle and the bacteria gets on my hands? So as we've mentioned, the concern for that would be addressed because this is a non-pathogenic bacteria and because it's a spore-forming bacteria. So when the bottle is in use, the bacteria would be inactive. So even if they were to get out from under the label, they would not survive and they would not be active or producing any enzymes. And if they were to, say, be consumed by a little kid, they would be non-pathogenic and would not cause any negative effects. Go ahead, Paloma.
Oh, sorry. So, someone asked, does these bottles provide same strength as normal ones? So, I assume that you mean that, so if you don't mind clarifying, do you mean that the whole structure and everything, like, is it still going to have the same, sort of structure? Like, it's not going to be any more soft? Okay, so so theoretically it would be the same, because what we're doing is we're not changing the bottle structure. What we're trying to do is implement, an engineered bacteria under a label. So that wouldn't change the structure of the bottle when the bacteria isn't active. So we are not proposing a new design for a plastic water bottle. Rather, we are proposing that we can take this engineered bacteria that holds the ability to degrade PET and put it underneath the label when it's inactive, so that when it does reach the ocean, unfortunately, then the bottle structure will change and start to degrade. But yes, to answer your question, it will provide the same strength as normal ones. It will not be, theoretically, it will not be any different than a regular plastic water bottle that you would buy. And that's one of the major points that we want to get at, is that it might be inconvenient for some families to have to buy a whole different bottle. So our goal is to retain as much of an original design as we can, and adding like minimal changes that can have a big impact.
Still inserting a compound will have some effect in the structure or not. So we are not, to continue off of this question, we're not adding anything to the standard bottle. So theoretically, a way to explain it would be, if you have a Poland Spring bottle sitting in your house right now, theoretically, you could take that bottle and just put our plastic degrading bacteria on top of the bottle. So it's the exact same bacteria bottle. The benefits of this being, we know that several biodegrading plastics have been introduced to the markets, but the issue with these plastics is that they're very expensive, and so it's difficult to get consumers to buy them, and it's difficult to get producers to adopt them. So we are keeping the same plastic water bottle that is used by basically every company right now. It is the industry standard. And the bacteria will just be placed on top. And it's not until the bacteria germinate when they reach the ocean that they will produce the enzyme to degrade the plastic. I hope that clarifies. Feel free to ask again if it doesn't, and we can address it. Meryl asks, how will the bacteria / enzymes be ensured to survive the manufacturing process and remain active? Is there a growth medium, etc., in the bottle? That's a great question. So being in the bacteria will be in their spore form in the production facilities, which makes them very, very resilient to extreme conditions of heat, amongst other things that they might encounter in such a facility. We would provide a growth medium under the label along with the bacteria. It's a mixture of dry nutrients that are specifically known to help the bacillus genome germinate. So the way we would do this is they would be dried out and it would be placed with the endospores. So upon reaching the ocean, they would germinate and the medium would no longer be dried out. So this would help the bacteria germinate. Another point to mention is that Bacillus tiansheni, the chassis that we'd like to use, the bacillus genome is known for forming biofilm. So this is another common question that we get is what happens if the bacteria floats off the bottle. So because the bacillus genome is known to form biofilm, the bacteria will actually bond to the plastics as using it as a substrate, and it will not float off the bottle in the ocean. So yes, there will be a growth medium in the bottle and they will survive because they'll be placed on after the bottle is manufactured and the spore form makes them extremely resilient. Thank you, that's a great question. I've got a question here from Sophia that says, what happens if the enzyme gets on your hands or body and you have a beach day? So that is a great question. So if it gets on your hands or body, first I'll address if it's not a beach day. It would be in its spore state and it would not be active. But say you were at the beach and you got salt water on your bottle. So first we would have the label as a barrier, but we recognize people peel the labels off their bottles and that's maybe not the most effective barrier. So say it were to get on your hands and say worst case scenario, you were to consume this bacteria accidentally. We anticipate that it would not have any negative effects because this is a non-pathogenic bacteria. So there's good bacteria and bad bacteria, right? So it would be a bacteria that does not harm you. But to ensure this, because we recognize that safety is a big concern, we would go through a process with the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, with which you can get a bacteria certified as non-pathogenic and non-harmful if it were to be consumed by humans. So this is the same process that, say, yogurt companies go through. They'd go through the EPA and they would get a certification for the bacteria so that it would be designated as non-harmful. So we would do all those kind of safety tests. Thanks, Sophia. That's a good question.
So-
Monica asks, oh, go ahead, Paloma.
Oh,
I
sorry.
can't hear you, but I
Um,
can hear you now, so.
Sorry, everyone, about my mic always cutting out. So Monica Brody asks, how likely do you think this technology will expand to other plastic products like grocery bags? That's a great question. So we've been thinking about how we can sort of expand this technology further than plastic water bottles. So we've also been considering the idea of like sort of using it like a spray on, landfills and huge masses of garbage. But in terms of grocery bags, that's a very interesting idea. Um, I guess so. Like that's something we would have to look into more. But we would have to consider how we would get the bacteria on the plastic on the grocery bag, and just sort of experiment with different things like that. But in terms of grocery bags going into the ocean, there are a lot of grocery bags in the ocean, like those plastic market basket plastic bags. And so our bacteria, even though they won't be living for too long in the ocean, we hypothesize, it will be active for a little bit of time while it's in the ocean, before it sort of dies. And we believe that it could use other substrates, other plastic substrates in the ocean, like plastic grocery bags, and sort of use them as like an energy source and break them down into environmentally benign compounds, just like they would with PET. And it also helps that grocery bags, they are made like they're predominantly made out of polyethylene terephthalate. So we believe that our bacteria might be able to use those as a substrate in the ocean.
We also might like to incorporate this technology into recycling facilities, which would be another way to expand it. There are recycling facilities, very few of them, unfortunately, that use similar enzymes to degrade plastic, but it hasn't really been successful yet. So, and as far as we know, PETase hasn't been used to do this. So we might like to incorporate this bacteria into recycling facilities so that, or landfills to degrade plastic in those scenarios. Meryl is asking, what are the products of PET breakdown, and does this have any effect on ocean ecosystems? So we touched on this a little, but I will expand on it. Thank you, Meryl. So the products of the breakdown are called ethylene glycol and terephthalic acid. These are two organic and environmentally benign compounds. They are naturally found in the ocean, and they're used as carbon sources for many marine microorganisms. So theoretically, there's no negative effect of the compounds themselves. However, we do recognize that introducing varying amounts of different compounds or even organisms into the ocean is likely to have effects that we cannot accurately foresee as of right now. So that is why once we get to that stage in our experimentation, we plan to do an analysis by mimicking an ocean ecosystem and placing our bacteria in it. This is called an environmental impact analysis. And we would measure the effects of the different compounds, the levels of them, see if it's affecting other microorganisms in the ocean. And from there, we would like to move on to testing it maybe in an isolated marine environment. So not just tossing it into the ocean, but maybe a small harbor or something like that. So we would definitely have several safety steps and measures in place to ensure that we're not just tossing a bacteria into the ocean and completely disrupting the ecosystem. Thank you, that's a great question. So I believe 2:30 is the time. I can answer this last question unless the next person is ready to present.
Oh, so she said it's okay.
Okay, so the last question for Monica says, would the bacteria degrade human products such as plastic boats? So plastic boats are not really usually made of polyethylene terephthalate, because it is a slightly flimsier material. But say if it were to encounter human products in the ocean that it has the ability to degrade, it would not degrade them at a fast enough rate for it to be significant, because these products are usually much more sturdy than the standard plastic water bottle. And additionally, it is unlikely that our bacteria would survive long enough in the ocean after it's used up the substrate of the bottle, which it has binded to by a biofilm, and the nutrients that we have provided on the bottles. So although a marine bacteria, we do not predict that it will be negatively affecting human products. Although this would be something that we would test in the environmental impact analysis that we've mentioned. With that, I think we're going to close. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and thank you for your questions. That was really great.
Thank you.
And please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Benny and Paloma, for speaking about your research today. And now our next speaker will be Emma Hubbard, and she's talking about solar power and renewable energy accessibility. Everyone, please welcome Emma.
Thank you. Let me get started. Okay. Is it up?
Yep, we can see.
Okay, let's go to present. So hi, this is the Electrobolt box and mini box. And actually from the left, that's the bolt box, and the right is the mini box. These are both solar chargers that support 100% solar power charging. And the goal of the experiment is to both utilize solar energy and make prototypes that are practical and efficient to use. We are currently on the verge of losing the foundation of energy production around the world. We use fossil fuels that we use more fossil fuels than can be naturally produced. And currently, at least 13% of the world population has no access to electricity. And with this comes the manifestation of economical, political, and even clinical hardships. And some countries are dependent upon oil and coal, and this presents a political issue when it comes to countries fighting with each other on resources. And this presents an economical issue, and the standard of living within a country can be affected by the availability of electricity. And clinically, pollution from fossil fuels can result in higher rates of cancer, heart disease, and asthma. And as you see from here, this shows both the comparison between the gross GDP of a country and the electricity production. From the US, where I live, this is where we are currently, Norway and Switzerland. But for lower countries, there's a correlation between lower production and lower GDP. And from here, we can see that there's health risk when it comes to CO2 and climate change and the production of air toxics. And as I said before, allergies, asthma, both which I suffer from, and from malnutrition, infectious diseases, trauma, mental health, asthma exacerbation, etc., and even cancer. These are all causes of air toxins and CO2, which can be mitigated by this invention. Now, we can hear from a personal testimony. This is actually Ed Mudane's story, and it's narrated by my father. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
So unfortunately, I do not think Zoom shares your computer audio. So if you could just tell us what he's saying, that would be great.
Oh, so this is basically a testimony from one of the people I've heard of. And he shares a story from Africa and about how when he was there in his village, they were using kerosene lamps to study from, and it causes acute lung diseases. It can even cause chronic lung diseases in people who have been exposed for really long periods of time. And he was saying that how my invention could help him and his people have safer sources of electricity so that children can study without breathing in toxic fumes from kerosene lamps, which is their only source of energy at that current moment. And he was also going into the fact that how previous solar energy projects have failed because of the high cost, which I'll get into later, and how my invention can come in and solve for the affordability issue and allow for a continuous use of clean electricity. So that was what that 21-second video was going to go on about. And we also, from here, we can say that there's a political backlash against renewable energy. For example, in the US, North Carolina is the latest state to consider scrapping its renewable energy targets because there's simply an efficiency issue when it comes to solar versus coal and natural gas. And in Texas, they overturned local bans on fracking, which is the process that extracts oil and gas from the earth. This is the reason why we need to consider the issue, take the issue to account from a macro level down to a micro level from each individual person besides citywide systems, and start addressing the needs of each citizen individually. The goal is to provide clean electricity to those in need and spread awareness about the possibilities of solar power and how it can affect citizens in their daily life, besides going from, so what I'm trying to say is we're going from top down and trying to address people at the individual level in this application. And here's one of the failed models that I used before. This is like the very first model of my invention. And what I use is a kind of a hand crank model system. And I used a DC motor, as you can see from right here. The DC motor models were hand cranked, and this required too much effort. The RPM, meaning the full turn of the handle per minute, needed to reduce electricity would tire the user easily and make a less practical device. So as you can see from here, it was simply a DC motor wired down by soldering to a step-up voltmeter. And from here, you have a USB that will produce at least 5 volts of electricity to your device. And it was directly connected to a shaft that would allow the user to turn with their hands. And this will be very unpractical because you would have to continuously turn it for however long period of time it would take for you to charge your phone. And it just tires someone out easily, especially someone like me. Now, from the failed model, it was determined that solar power would be the best fit simply because it's effortless. You simply set your this device out in the sun, you can let it charge as you charge your device as well. And it eliminates the need for a wall outlet to recharge your models. Because usually what I would do with a regular battery pack, I would every night take the battery pack and charge it up against my wall. But sometimes people simply don't have access to that. For example, if they're homeless or they don't have access to electricity at all. So it allows for effortless charging with solar energy. And the mini bolt box is a very simple electrical circuit that allows for a consistent voltage. For example, when you have a hand crank system, the amount of RPM is kind of inconsistent because you're always trying to make sure it steps up to that high voltage of 5 volts. And sometimes if you're cranking it very slowly, you might only get 1 volt out of it, and it's not going to be sufficient enough to charge your device. So that's another reason why DC motors in the hand crank system was kind of insufficient. And that's why I resulted to a solar panel and a battery, so that there will be a consistent voltage going to the step-up system. And as you can see, it charges my Bluetooth headphones, which only need 5 volts, and is as indicated by the red light. Now for the bolt box, these are kind of the challenges that I had. We needed a solar panel charge controller that was best matched the amp hours of the battery. And to find this, I took the 1.3 amp hour for a 20-hour battery and found that it was 0.065 amps that were drawn per hour. And this was found by simply dividing that up. And after some research, I found that a 5-volt solar panel that outputs a higher voltage of 0.277 amps. And from there, the solar charge controller needed to serve a 5-volt panel, which is considered small in the market. So it was very hard to find one because most of them simply were like between 10 to 40 watts of battery, because you would simply need to charge for a bigger application than this project. And this battery tender charge controller was the best fit because the minimum was 5 watts and maximum 45. So from here, you can see that's where my battery is, and that's where all the solder connections are. And from here, that's where the battery, the solar charge controller is. skipped one.
Thank you.
Oh, it's okay. For the bolt box, for continuous use, and for the project, for my experiment, it charged from 30% to 70% in my test. A person would need to follow the 20-to-10 ratio rule. That's what I kind of made up. 20 minutes to charge devices and 10 minutes to disconnect devices, and let the products charge for 10 minutes in the sun before reuse. And for the output of the bulb box, it was 110 volts for the wall outlet and 2.1 and 1 amp for the US ports. And for the mini box, it was concluded that it took 4 to 5 hours under indoor light, which was the test was conducted using a desk lamp in my room to fully charge. And it can charge the small device, which was these pink headphones, up to 4 times. And the output was 600 milliamps for this particular USB port. And as you see from here, this is a iPhone SE, and it was charging my device. Now it's time for a demonstration. Oh, can you still hear this, or?
Maybe you should try stop sharing your screen, and when you try it again, but this time there should be an option at the bottom that says share computer audio.
All right.
Like when I start sharing my screen for the first time after stopping, at the bottom of like the pop-up panel, it says there's like a little checkbox for share computer audio.
All right.
Or share computer sound.
Oh. Where is it again?
So I clicked the green share screen button, and then there's like this window that pops up where I can select the tab to share. And at the bottom of that window, I have like a little checkbox that says share computer sound and optimize screen sharing for viewing video clip. Maybe it's not on your computer.
Yeah, I don't think it's on mine. I might try this one. Can you hear it?
No, maybe if you play the audio on your phone, or if you have one, and like press to start at the same time.
All right.
And like hold your phone speaker to your computer.
Let's see. Both of these are all right. Let's see if this will work. Both of these are simply basking in the sun, charging as you go. Absolutely no effort needed. Now, for the bolt box, as you can see, there's a power inverter that's there. Now, if you zoom in, now you can see the battery pack and the solar charge controller. According to the charge controller, the battery is fully charged. Also installed a mini voltmeter so someone can tell how much the battery is charging under the sun or how much is discharging when something is connected to the inverter. Now, if you power it on, it turns green and it's ready to charge your devices. Now for the Electro Mini Box. All you have to do is turn it on like this from the back, And there's a little red light that tells you that your device is on. All right, I apologize for that kind of debacle. There was a kind of a timing issue between that. Can you still hear me? No. All right. So the benefits of this is allows charging indoors even with solar power. So even if because the solar panel is very sensitive, I'm able to open one of my windows and allow for the device to charge while I'm in my own room. And it allows for freedom and mobility throughout the day. It's useful in emergencies and you can feel safe knowing that your devices are charged at any time. It's quite cheap to make. It was $120 for the bulk box in totality and $20 for the mini box. And it's useful for road trips, plane travel, and even everyday outings. And most importantly, it allows those in need to have access to clean energy. Now, some of the plans for our future, I believe that in order to lessen our dependence on fossil fuels, we need to provide the quality and standard of living will continue and be constant despite the switch to renewable energy. The goal of these devices is to spread awareness of solar energy and how its use can be integrated into the lives of people. I wish to not only sell this, but to do charity work and provide small, scalable solar energy to those in need. Now, does anyone have any questions? Let's go back to the... See, stop. Trying to see both the zoom in. All right. Okay, so let's see. Question for the end. Why do you think Norway is an outlier? Norway is an outlier because they mostly use both wind energy and solar energy in one of their technologies. And they're one of the forefront leaders in integrating renewable energy into their economy. And they also utilize hydroelectricity as well. And so they're just one of the forefront leaders in utilizing renewable energy in their outsourcing. The second question I got was, does using a desk lamp versus a sunlight affect how quickly the solar panels charge? Absolutely yes. And that is because the intensity of light matters. So for example, when I'm using in my room, a 10 watt typical desk lamp will not charge the device as fast as simply throwing my device outside in a balcony and letting it charge from there. And also the surface area of your light matters as well. So if you are gonna charge these devices under a desk lamp, you will have to make sure the light is spread around the entire solar panel for it to optimize that small amount of electricity that's going into it. Any other questions?
So in the future, how do you think you would like improve your design further and increase the efficiency?
I plan on actually making a 10 watt solar panel box. with a 120 volt car inverter, simply to make sure that the output and input of the voltage is more efficient and allow the user to use it for a much longer period of time. And right now I'm using a 1.3 amp hour battery, which is basically what you use in a laptop battery. That's why laptops are rhetorically, they're known for dying really quickly unless you get one of those very efficient ones. So I'm going to update the battery by using a higher amp hour battery, typically between 7 and 8, to go with the solar panel, because that's the part that really matters the most. Simply getting those efficiencies right between the input of the solar panel that's coming from the sun and the how much amp hour is going to take for it to charge the battery. Any more?
Do you plan to like increase production of the of your like of your design and like bring it to people who don't have access to electricity in the future?
I'm currently using GoFundMe as a resource, and I'm also reaching to people within my community college, because I'm dual enrolled, so I have a both high school community and a college community. So I'm reaching out to both. I competed in quarter zero, and I'm also reaching out to clubs around school. And since the coronavirus kind of knocked us all for a loop, I'm participating in virtual competitions and talking to people and networking with that, and engaging in social media, and mostly getting people aware of it so I can make connections in order to mass produce it. So currently my goal is to raise at least $6,000 for a patent, and then be able to go out and service more people and have enough money to make more of these. Any more? All right.
Thank you
Oh.
so much for presenting your work today, Emma. It was very good and
You're
interesting.
welcome.
So it looks
Oh.
like that's all the questions. So our next presenter will be in 5 minutes, and it's Siddharth Sharma talking about the role of machine learning in bioinformatics. And if Siddharth is here, oh, not yet, it appears. It looks like Siddharth is not here yet, so we will wait 2 more minutes.